All right, we are live. Okay, so, well, I guess you've all seen the first video, but just in case, my name is Ben Nelson, and I am the instructor for this JavaScript course. So a little about me, I'm a full-stack JavaScript developer. I've been doing that for several years. I've also been a head instructor over at Coding Bootcamp for several years now too. So I've done a lot of teaching with people that have no experience or people that have advanced degrees in computer science. Taught people from a wide variety of backgrounds. So yeah, I'm here to explain some additional control flow stuff. We're going to dive into some more advanced conditions with if statements, and then we're going to go over for loops, and then we're even going to touch on arrays today. Yeah, okay. So first thing, don't worry if the homework's not done. All these lectures are recorded, and so you can go back and watch them and if you need to. And part of what we're doing here is, we're going live and we're going over the content fairly quickly, but hopefully I explain it clearly enough so that way as you go back and rewatch the video or rewatch certain portions of it, it can sink in and make more sense to you. Also, there's the awesome community that we have on Slack, and there's lots of great channels in there that you can ask your questions, and yeah, just a great way for you to continue learning and to do all those things. So yeah, so don't worry if your homework's not done. And I know that there were a lot of people that were kind of stressed about the whole Git and GitHub aspect of yesterday's homework. Anyway, yesterday we intentionally just kind of skipped over that. We were focusing more on just some of the basic JavaScript stuff, and but a lot of you just went in and figured out the GitHub stuff on your own, and that's awesome. And so today I'm going to do a little more in depth into Git and GitHub, and for those of you that didn't put your project up to GitHub, now you can go back and do that. For those of you that did do it, awesome for you. That was like extra credit from yesterday. So yeah, so let's dive into Git and GitHub, and I'll explain to you some of the basic commands and the workflow that we're going to use from here on out. All right, so let's do screen share. All right. Okay, so here's GitHub. I'm just on the base github.com. This is what it looks like when I'm logged in. And GitHub is just like this giant online cloud place for storing all your code. And so you have these little things called repositories. They're just, think of them as like different folders. And each folder is just a place where you can save your code in the cloud. The reason that you'd want to do that is, what if your computer breaks down? If your computer breaks, all of your stuff is backed up in the cloud so you don't lose it. That's one reason. Another reason is it makes it so that way you can have a large distributed team that can work on the same code base. So Austin, he lives in California, lives in the Bay Area, and I've been living in Utah recently, but we can still collaborate on our projects despite this great distance, because we can push our code up to GitHub, and it allows us to collaborate. So that's one aspect of GitHub, and the other aspect is it's called Git. So Git is different from GitHub. GitHub is online cloud place to store your code. Git is the version control software that you use with your repositories. And so version control, what does that mean? So imagine that you're in a class and your teacher assigns, so you have there's 100 students in the class, and your teacher assigns you guys to all work on an essay at the same time. You're all writing the exact same essay. So let's say it's a 100-page essay, and all of you are doing a page of it. Or better yet, let's say it's a 20-page essay, and each of you, are doing a paragraph of it. And your paragraphs are all scattered around, and everyone's working on a different copy. What if somebody, changes something on the first page, and, another guy changes something on, the last page, and all of a sudden everything's out of sync, and, it could become extremely difficult to maintain a cohesive structure. And then let's add on top of that, imagine that a single typo in the essay will cause all 100 of you to get an F. So the whole thing doesn't work. You all get an F if there's even one typo in it. So Git version control is a very structured way to allow an infinite number of people to be working on the same files and the same documents. And so, but instead of a Word document with essays, it's you're working on files of code. And so, with my company, we use GitHub, and what we do is all of us, developers, we all get on and we work, and we operate on the same code base, but Git makes it so we don't step on each other's toes. And the way that it does that is it lets you make a copy of it. So you have the master copy that's on GitHub, and then you can have your own little copy of it. You can make your changes of it, make your changes to the copy, and then you can submit a request to merge your changes in with the master copy. And so then your other teammates can go in and look and review it and make sure that all of the code is right. There's not any typos in there. There's no logical things in there that are going to break everything. And so you can get some eyes on it and very clearly see the parts of the master copy that'll be changed, and they'll approve it. You merge that in, and then now the master copy has your changes entered into it, and then everyone else can go and update their copy that they've made to make it match the master copy. So it's a very, very safe way to have a large group of people editing the same document. For the purpose of our class, so Git is pretty standard. It's used everywhere. And so not necessarily GitHub. There's different online services or local services that you can have that allow you to use Git and store your code. But Git as like a version control system is pretty much used everywhere, and it's considered a best practice. And so use Git, use GitHub. For the purpose of our project, the way it's going to work, and I'm just going to do it with Minicamp Homework 1. We'll look over that. Is you'll see this project here, and this is under me. So, and what you'll do is you're going to fork it. So that means you're going to make a copy of it, and then you'll clone it down your computer. And I'll walk you through that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull up. Let's do Express.js GitHub. So this is one of the frameworks that we use when we teach you back-end development in our full-time course. This is something that allows you to build APIs to communicate with the client. So here we go. So we have this repository here, and you can see it looks. The structure of it is identical to mine. Obviously, the files and the content are very different, but you can see like this is the name of the owner, the GitHub user that controls this repository, and then this is the name of the repository. So JS Minicamp Homework 1. And over here we can see there's people watching it, they get notified of updates, people that have starred it, it's kind of like liking it, and then forking it. And so fork is what we're gonna have you do with our homework. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go up to this button, and then you click fork. And so I'm gonna do it with Express because I already own this one. So imagine that Express is homework 2 for tonight. So you're going to come in here and you're going to push the fork button. And then it tells you where to fork it. I have a bunch of different groups I'm a part of, but I click myself, and it's forking it, and it takes a little while. Express is kind of big, so it might take a little longer to do its thing, but there. And so now we see that we have my name, my username, and then we have Express. And so essentially what it did is it made a copy of the Express, like their master version. It made a copy of it and a copy of the history of all the changes and everything, and then it went and put it under my username. So now I have this repository or folder that has all the files in it and everything needed, the files and folders that are needed to make Express go. And so, yeah, so now I have so I've forked it. I have a version of it that's separate from theirs, and then now if I want to edit it and make changes to it, I need to get it down onto my computer. And the way we do that is we can download it or clone it. And so I go to this green button and push that. It gives me a URL here. You can push this little clipboard button, it automatically copies it for you. And then now let's go hop over into Terminal, and let me close out of a bunch of stuff real quick. I forgot to clean this up. Okay. All right. So let's jump into Terminal. And then, all right, so you can see we're in the root directory. We're like the base. You see all the different folders. I'm going to go into the desktop. So cd desktop, enter ls. Okay, so here's where I'm at. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go git clone, and then I'm going to paste in that clone address. So what this is going to do is Git is going to go and grab this directory and download it into the front folder that I'm in. So inside of desktop, it's going to put the Express folder. So I hit enter. And again, don't worry about following along as you watch this. Watch the video, be a sponge, absorb as much as you can. And then as you go through the homework, you can have plenty of time to work and figure all this out. So now I hit ls, and I can see that here's Express. So let's go into Express. I'm going to clear this to kind of move this out and zoom in a little bit. It's a little hard to see. There we go. All right. So now we're inside of the Express folder. So this is all the stuff that we just saw on GitHub. So if I jump back over to GitHub, here it is. So there's my username, Express. Here's the folder with all the stuff in it. And then I come back to terminal. Here's all the stuff in the Express folder that I cloned down onto the desktop. So now I can do this thing I call it git status, and it tells me that I'm all up to date with the version that's on my GitHub account. And so let's say I go in and change something. So let's see, I'm just gonna make a change real quick. I'm gonna open this up in Sublime. Everything's set up real quick. So, all right, so let's come into the README, and then let's say that I don't like their README, and so I'm gonna put in just a bunch of random stuff in here. Okay, great. So that looks a lot better to me. All right. So now, jump back over to terminal. I can do git status. And then I can see right here in red, it says modified readme.md. And so it says that the README has been changed. So now what I can do is I can go git add. Then I can do a period to add everything, or I can type in the name of the file. And I hit enter, and type in git status. Okay, and so now we see that it is, well, let me go back up to the top. Okay, so now we see that this is turned green, and what that means that it's staged and it's ready to commit. And a commit is essentially, you can think of it as like a big save. So like you save your file locally, as you make changes, and then a commit is like this hard save. It makes a snapshot of the folder at this time, and then we can save that. And then what happens is, let's say somebody makes a change to our project and it gets merged in. Let's say it breaks everything. And so what we can do is we can reset back to a previous save. And we have a history of all the different saves, all the different commits that have been made. And we can reset back to one of those if something is broken. And so that happens at my company sometimes. So let's say there's some issue slipped through code review, and all of a sudden some of the users on our site can't use a certain feature because it's broken. What we'll do is we'll do a reset and take our site back to a previous version, and then we'll go in and figure out what went wrong, and then we'll fix those changes, and then so that's what committing is. So now we have add. So if we had multiple files that we had edited and they were all in red, then when we do add, we can select the files that we're wanting to save, that we're wanting to put into this hard save. So all right, so we have that added, it's ready to go. So now the next thing we do is we do git commit. So then this is a save, and then do -m space, and then in quotes. And inside of the quotes, you're going to type a little message, and this kind of describes what you did to the README. And so I'll say improved readme.md. So it's a little message, so that way as we're looking through all the commits, we can see, okay, these are the things that he did. So if you're working on a project, generally what you would commit when you get a feature working, or when you get a section of your code to to work, then you do like this this hard commit. So all right, so git commit -m improved readme.md, hit enter. Okay, so there's one file changed, 15 insertions. So in 15 lines, there was stuff that was added. So now I'm going to type in git status. We can see, all right, on branch master, all right. Yeah, and it just says that we're ahead of origin master. So what that means is we're ahead of the place that we cloned Express from. So our fork of Express that's on GitHub. So we're ahead of it. It means that we have an extra save that they don't have up there. So now we need to push these saves up to the top. And we're going to provide a guide for you guys. So don't worry about like memorizing or taking like strict notes on this. It's more just like me giving you an overview. And then in the homework, in the README, there will be a section that will list all of these commands in order and will describe just the exact process for what to do. So don't stress about it too much. So we have everything locally. Now let's do git push origin master. And again, a lot of this is you're just going to have to like have your notes up with these commands listed, and then write them and use them 100 times, and then it'll start to kind of sink in, and your muscle memory will develop. So so initially, like with Git, there's a lot of just write down the list of commands and walk through it. So all right, so git push origin master, and that's gonna push it back up to the cloud, and then boom. All right, so I went through these things. It says it pushed it to this right here. So my username and then Express. So now let's jump over to the browser. And if I refresh this, now let's look at the README. Yep, here's our beautiful addition to the README right here. So, and again, this is on our local one. So let's say that I really think that these changes would improve Express, the repository as a whole. Then what I can do is I can submit what's called a pull request. So a new, well, yeah, anyway, a new pull request, and I can make an a request to this to the master, the place that I made my copy from, and I could say, hey, add my changes into the master copy, and then they would look at it and they would see that this is a ridiculous change, and then they would reject it. But if I made some really cool improvement in the code, they may accept it, or maybe if I fixed a bug for them. So Express is open source, so this is all open source. Anyone can come in here and fork and clone, and download whatever the code from Express. There's a lot of different repositories that are open source like that, and it's cool because then all the developers around the world can help contribute. It's also something that looks really good when you're applying for a job if you're contributing to open source projects. It shows that you really know your stuff. And yeah, okay, so that's GitHub. So I'll have instructions in the homework, and so essentially what you're going to do is you're going to fork the homework, clone it down to your machine, make your changes, commit your changes, then push them back up to your fork. And that's the process you're going to work through. So fork it over to yours, clone it down onto your computer, make changes, commit all the different changes, push them back up to your fork. Okay, so that's the workflow. We'll have instructions for it, so don't stress too much about it. All right, so Git, GitHub. That is those are like the basics. There's a lot more that you can do with Git and GitHub, but those are the basics, and that's everything that you're going to need for our course. All right. Okay, so now we're going to jump in and play around with some different conditions and things. So we finished off yesterday by talking about if statements. So right now, let's kind of, so we're going to expand on the if statement a little bit. So an if statement, you can think of it as like it's a fork in the road, and the if statement channels the flow of the program down one path or down the other, and it has some different conditions. So it says if this condition is true, then take this path. If it's not true, then take the other path. So the general structure of an if statement is if true, then do whatever is in here. Else, do whatever is in here. So yeah, so like for example, let's say var the food is equal to pizza. So what we can do here is let's say if food is equal to pizza, console.log yummy. else console.log. I would rather have pizza. So what's happening here now is we have this string that we defined. So var food gets the string, so the string pizza. And so then that's the first thing that the computer does. It reads that first line, it creates a variable in memory called food, and it assigns the string pizza to it. So then it goes down to line 3, and then it sees this if statement, and then it goes and it looks inside of these parentheses. And whatever is in these parentheses will ultimately be evaluated to be either true or false. So if you remember those Booleans. And so right here, when I do this comparison, triple equals, there's a double equals in JavaScript. Don't use it. It's considered actually kind of a mistake from when they first made the language. There's a lot of inconsistencies with it. It's considered best practice to always use triple equals. So don't use double equals. That's the simple explanation of it. If you want to learn more about it, go look on Stack Overflow and stuff. They have some cool things you can look at. All right, so food equals pizza. So if food is equal to pizza, which it is, then it's going to log yummy. And then if it's not equal to pizza, then it's going to log this. So let's go into terminal, and let me navigate into the place that I need to be. All right. Yes, mini bootcamp. All right, and then let's go into lecture. All right. Okay, so that was just a lot of LSs and CDs and clears. Okay, so we have scratch.js right here. That's the file that we're editing. So now let's run it. Yummy. Okay, so yummy printed out to the console. Let's jump back in there. Okay, so now let's see. All right, so now let's change this to escargot. I think that's how you spell it, like snails or whatever. Okay, let's come back in a terminal. I would rather have pizza. Okay. So you can see here that what happens is that food, this variable that has the string escargot in it, it goes and it sticks it right here, and it says, does that equal pizza? So essentially, it's like this. It's saying, are these equal? Clearly, they are not equal. And so then it skips this block of code, and it jumps down to this block. All right. So this is perfectly picky, this equality. If they're a little bit off, this is unequal. You know, it's sorry, I thought I had my notifications off. Okay, so all right, so those are not equal. Yeah, like these ones are equal now, but yeah, if there's any small minor change to it, they're not equal. So you know, like true and those are not equal. 1 and 1, those are not equal. So all right. So now let's do this. So if you can make more complex if statements, so we're going to do this now. So if food equals pizza, say that, and let's say Oreos. No, let's do. All right, let's do steak. I apologize if there's any vegetarians. Okay, so now what we can do is we can do an else if statement. All right, let me. Sorry, actually, just. All right, so now what we can do with this if statement is we can check this condition. So we can say if food equals pizza, console.log yummy. Else if food equals steak, log super yummy. Okay. So now what's going to happen with this control flow is what's going to happen is so food, the variable food is going to be assigned the string steak, and then food comes down. Food is just the string steak. So steak equals pizza. That is false. And so this right here all simplifies down to false. And so this block is skipped. Everything between those curly braces is skipped. Then it comes down here and it sees an else if. So it knows, okay, so check this condition. So it goes here, okay, food triple equals steak. And do they equal? Yes. And so then it executes this block and then it's done. And then it comes down here and starts doing its thing. So anyway, you can chain as many else ifs as you want, and the else is kind of the final catch that catches everything that falls through. So if the value came through and made it all the way to the end. So spaghetti. All right. So anyway, so spaghetti comes through, doesn't match, comes down to else, console log, rather have pizza. Okay. So that's the basic structure. That's how if statements, that's how they work. That's how you can combine them. Yeah, we're not going to go over some of this. Okay, all right. So now let's jump back. We're just going to do a basic if statement. I'm going to go over some different things you can do here to kind of chain, chain the logic together. Okay, so instead of food, let's say age. Let's make age 16. So I may have used this example yesterday, but now we're going to say if they're older than 16, then or if they're 16 or older, then they can drive. If not, then we'll say call your mom to pick you up. So, all right, so let's start with 15. So the way that we can check for this is we can say, is age greater than 15? So that's like saying, so the number 16 would satisfy this. So if their age is 15, we come down, and so this gets replaced by 15. Is 15 greater than 15? Obviously, that's not true. That's false. So this statement evaluates to false. This block is skipped. Then this console log will run. Let's say if we change this to 16. Now we can run here. This becomes 16. So 16 is greater than 15. That is true. So this evaluates to true. This block runs. The else block is skipped, and the program continues on its way. All right, so now let's do, okay, so the other way you can do that is instead of greater than 15, what reads a little better is we'll say, is age greater than or equal to 16? We usually say you drive when you're 16. We don't usually say you drive when you're older than 15. It just logically, it can be a little easier to read to write it this way. And so what we're saying here is we're saying greater than or equal to. So if age is greater than or equal to 16, or if 16 is less than or equal to the age, either way you can think about that. So if 16, so 16 replaces, so now we have 16 here. So 16 is greater than or equal to 16. Yes, it's equal, so that satisfies it. And so this first one would run. Okay, so that's greater than or equal to. The other options are, triple equals. What this would do here is it means that you can only drive if you were 16, because if you were 17, then they wouldn't be equal and then it wouldn't work. So triple equals is that strict comparison. All right, so now let's do, okay, so now we're going to go over some different Boolean operators, or Boolean logical operators is what they're called. So it's how you can have multiple conditions inside of this if. So let's say, so we have var age, and we'll set that equal to 16, and then we'll say var has driver's license. We'll set that equal to false. Okay. So now it's because it's not just that you're 16, to drive. That's the driving age in the United States, or at least here in Utah. It's different in some of the other states. Anyway, so what we're going to do is you can't just drive as soon as you're 16. So you need to have your driver's license in. Let me make sure that make that font a little bigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to say age is greater than or equal to 16. And that's what we've seen. But we need to also make sure that they have their driver's license. So we're going to say age is greater than or equal to 16 and has driver's license. So what the and this and operator does, 2 ampersands, what it says is the condition on the left and the condition on the right both need to be true. So it's going to come in and it's going to say age is greater than or equal to 16. So 16 greater than or equal to 16, yes. This right here is going to simplify down to true. And it's going to come here, has driver's license, because it's going to look at driver's license, see what it is. It's false. So it's true and false. And so this whole thing simplifies down to false. So then this block gets skipped and it comes down to else. If we change this to true, let me back a second. So if we change this to true, then has driver's license would be true. So this statement is true, and this statement is true. And if both sides are true on both sides of this these double ampersands, then this first condition, this first block runs, and then it skips the else block. That's what and does. The other one is or. So this one is the or operator. So with the or operator, only one of them needs to be true. So let's say we live in a place that you don't have to have a driver's license, or if you have a driver's license, you can drive when you're younger than 16. So yeah, okay. So we'll just imagine a world like that. So what we're going to do here is, anyway, so we'll come down, and if this is false, it's going to come down, 16 greater than or equal to 16, that's true. And it's not even going to worry about checking this other one because it knows only one of these has to be true. The first one's already true, so it runs the code in this block. If the age was 14, but this was true, then it would come down here and it would say 8, so it's 14 greater than or equal to 16. And that is false. And so this becomes false. It then comes over here to the other side and checks this. It says, okay, has driver's license, what's your value? Value's true. And so, okay, so true. So false or true. And one of them is true. So this entire thing becomes true. This block runs. This block is skipped. So that's, anyway, so those are some 2 different very commonly used logical operators. The other thing you can do too, the last one that I want to show you, so just I put a comment here, we've had the double ampersands, we've had the 2 ors, and now I'm going to talk about the exclamation mark, or the not. So this the not, or the exclamation mark, it reverses the truthiness of whatever value is comes after it. So has driver's license, true. So what we'll say is let's see, let me think of an example that's not too logically crazy. So let's do all right, var is drunk. We'll set that equal to false. If is drunk, okay, so obviously we don't want to do this, but what we can do here is we can put this exclamation mark on the front of it. And so we can check and we can say, okay, if is drunk, if this variable is false, then what it does is it takes that false and it makes it true. And so then this statement, then this block will run. These can get a little confusing as you chain onto them and get big logical expressions. It can get very confusing very fast. And so you want to try to keep these as simple as possible, but it allows you to write your code in a way that is a little more readable. So we can say if they're not drunk. So like is drunk, if that's false, then run this code. So that can be a little confusing, but so is drunk is false. So the person is not drunk. And so this variable is false, which is what we want. We want this to be false. And so when we see false, we're going to reverse invert that, make it true. And the reason we do that is because inside of these parentheses, whatever gets evaluated in here, if it evaluates to true, then this block runs. If it evaluates to false, then the else block will run, or the next else if will be checked. And so call a taxi. Okay. So, all right, so let's just run this just so you can see. So the person's not drunk. Go to terminal. You can drive. All right. So that is what the exclamation mark does. The exclamation mark reverses the value, because maybe you have a bunch of details about the person and in the computer, and you want to check a bunch of different things, and so it's easier to say maybe you want to write it as is drunk instead of is not drunk. So anyway, that's the exclamation mark. That's what you do there. Yeah. Okay. So so now we have two more things we need to go over, and we're probably going to go over a little bit. Okay, so we've learned about forking. So like an if, so like an if statement, like a fork in the road. You can have your code go down different paths. Now we're going to learn about what if you have a single piece of code that you want to run over and over and over again. Let's say you want to run it 20 times. You have a little block of code and you want to run that block of code 20 times. We use what's called a for loop. So for, and then I'm just going to write this out. Honestly, with for loops, you're just going to have to write them out a whole bunch, to have the syntax and everything sink in. But you're using for loops all the time. You're using lots of if statements, lots of for loops. Those are very common, very, very common things. There's also while loops and do while loops and other things like that. I'm going to spend most of the time just having you guys focusing on for loops, because this is what you're using 99% of the time, at least in my experience. So first thing we do is we declare a value that we can iterate by, and I is less than 10. Well, actually, let's do this. Usually start at 0. So, okay, and then I++, and then I'll explain what those three statements are doing. Okay, so right now let's do console.log hi. Okay, all right, so I made the for loop. I'm just going to go run the code so you can see what the output is. Great, so you see that hi got printed out a whole bunch of times. 10 times to be exact. All right, so here's how a for loop works. So as you see, you have these two semicolons in here. There's essentially three different kind of statements that we have in here. So the first one is we declare a value to iterate by. So I is the convention that we use, and that's kind of what keeps that keeps track of the loop that we're on, and that's what we use to figure out our exit condition. So var I gets 0, we initialize that to 0, and then here in the next section, we have I is less than 10. And so as long as I is less than 10, the loop's going to continue. And then we come into here and we see I++. What the plus does is that increases I by 1. Plus, minus, minus, those are some different operators that we have. There's plus, minus, 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 times equals, plus equals. Anyway, there's a couple different operators in there that we haven't really gone over, but they're not as crucial to what we're teaching right now. But anyway, that's what plus does. When you do plus on an integer, on a number, it increases it by 1. So let me just show you that real quick. Our x gets 0. I'll go x++, x++, x++. Now let's console.log x. Declare x, set it to 0. We go x++, 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 console.log x. Let's go see what it is. In the terminal, 3. So x was incremented up to 3. So that's what, anyway, that's what the plus is doing. So, all right. Let's go to these comments. Okay, so now, so for var I gets 0, I is less than 10, I++. All right, so we're going to console log hi. Okay, so what happens is I starts at 0, and then it checks, and it says, is 0 less than 10? That's true. So then it's going to run this block of code. And so it's going to increment I once this block is finished. So then it comes back up to the top. I is now 1 right here. So it says, is 1 less than 10? Yes. And so then it runs the block of code again. I is incremented after. We come up, it's 2. 2 less than 10, true. And as you see, it's just going to keep going up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then it's going to get to 10. It's going to say, is 10 less than 10? No, that is false. And as soon as that's false, the for loop exits, and then the code keeps going down the, going down the path, going down the page. The computer, just keeps reading down the page. So those are how those 3 different conditions work. So less than 10. Let's console log I now, so you can see what it looks like as we're going along. So console.log I. So I'm going to jump back over to terminal. Up. Boom. So you see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We wanted to print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What we do is let's have this start at 1. And then let's say less than or equal to 10. We'll go back over to terminal. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And the reason that works is because as soon as I becomes 11, it's going to say is 11 less than or equal to 10? No, and then then it will exit and the for loop will be done. So a for loop, inside of here you can have a bunch of different things of code or lines of code that you want to run over and over and over again. A lot of the time when you're using a for loop, you are iterating over an array. That's most of the time you're using a for loop. Honestly, you're working on an array. And so let me show you what an array is. I'm going to flip this back to 0. So, well, I'll just delete that right now. So, all right, so you've learned about, we have our variables, x gets 5. We have functions. Okay, so now what happens though if we have a whole bunch of variables that we want to store together under one name, a bunch of different values that we want to store under one name? So let's say we have a list of your favorite foods. And so favorite foods, it's like, well, I can make it one giant string, and and I could say, mango, steak, and whatever, one big long sentence like that. But in our code, we probably want a bunch of individual strings. And so we can group them all together under what's called an array and use these square brackets. And inside of there, we can type in, steak, mango, curry. So, we can put some different, we put these different strings inside of it. As you notice, they're separated by a comma. The last one does not have a comma in it. And yeah, this is our array. So let's log it out so you can see what it looks like. And then I'm gonna get rid of these functions, the function and variable. Let's go back into terminal. Run it again. So now you see here, steak, mango, curry. There's a length property on it. And that gives you the count, the number of things that are inside of the array. So let's go back into terminal. And then run it again. 3. There are 3 things in the array. Now let's say that we want to print all of these foods out to the console. So let's do. This is where we combine the array with a for loop. Well, actually, first thing first, let me show you how to access a specific item in the array, and then we'll jump into how to use it with a for loop. So let's say that we want to console log steak. The way we access it now inside of the foods array is you put these brackets. So we have this right here. We have the name of the array, and then you put 2 square brackets right after it. And then inside of it, you put a number. And the number is kind of like the address or where the item is at in the array. It starts at 0, which is a little tricky at first to get used to. But so the 0th item in the array is the first item. So if we do 1, so then that would be mango. If we put a 2, that would be curry. If we put a 3, it would be undefined because there is no fourth item in the array. So that can be a little tricky at first, but it starts at 0. So the 0 item is this one. So now if we print this out, we should see 3 and steak in the console. So let me and again, there. So 3 and steak were both printed out. Okay, so that's how we get the first item. If we want to get the last item, we do 2. Now I'd print out curry. Okay, but then let's say that I went to a Chinese restaurant and I really, really love fried rice. And that is now one of my favorite foods. And I'm getting a little wide here, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, so all right, so now I have 4. So now if I'm wanting to get the last item in the array, I go 2. But then as you see, it's still curry because it's accessing it like it's hard-coded in. And so what we can do here is we can go favorite foods.length, number of things that are in the array, and we -1 off of it because it's 0 based. And so this right here will always give us the last item in the array. So favorite foods, the way this works, again, let's walk through this expression. So we get favorite foods, which is this array of 4 items, and we go .length. And so this whole part, this whole section right here simplifies to the number 4, essentially. And then we say 4 - 1. And that becomes 3. So favorite foods at the 3rd index. And so 0, 1, 2, 3, fried rice. So let me write that back in. Now if we come back in the terminal, run it again, fried rice. If I get sick of fried rice, I don't like it anymore, and it's back to curry, and there's curry. Okay. So this will naturally always get the last item in the array. So anyway, those are some of the very common things to do. Like here, we're always, if we're wanting to always grab the last item, this array.length property, you're using that a lot. And yeah, we're especially going to use it in just a moment inside of our for loop. So, okay. All right, let's do. All right, okay. Okay, actually, I'm gonna, yeah, okay, so for loops, all right. So for var I gets 0, I is less than, now instead of doing like 10 or whatever, we're gonna go favorite foods dot length, and then go I plus plus. So we switched out the 10 that I used earlier and put in the length of the array. And so, and you remember that it's all 0 based, and so this is why we start at 0 conventionally, because 0 makes it so that we can use I to access the first item in the array. So now let's print out each item in the array. Favorite foods, we'll bracket, and we're going to stick I in there. So I is going to change. The variable is going to be incremented at each cycle of the loop. Every time this block of code runs, it's going to, the I is going to have a different value. And this block is going to run 3 times because it's going to, I is starting at 0. And then as long as I is less than 3, it's going to run this block. So when I is 0, it's going to go favorite foods, bracket, I. And I is 0 initially. So this will be steak. And it will print it out. And then the loop runs again. But now I has been incremented to 1. And so I is not 0 anymore. It's 1. And so favorite foods 1 at address 1 is mango. So mango gets printed to the console. And then the loop finishes. It goes back up to the top. I has now been incremented again. I is now 2. And it comes down at here. This becomes 2. Favorite foods index 2 is curry. And then it prints out curry. Comes back up to the top. I is now 3. And so then it says, is 3 less than favorite foods.length, which is 3. So is 3 less than 3? False. And so the loop doesn't run again, and it skips out, and then the program keeps executing. So that's how a for loop works, and that's how you use it to iterate over an array. So let's go run this in the console, and we'll see all the stuff print out. Go to terminal, run it, and steak mango curry. Okay, so this is super common. You're doing this all the time. You're iterating over an array. Eventually, we'll teach you some different array methods that kind of simplify this process of iterating over an array, but this is very, very, very simple. Very, very, very common, I mean. Let's say now inside of here, let's say that we want to, when we run into mango, we want to change mango to pineapple. So what we can do is, let's say if favorite foods I is equal to mango, then we need to reassign it. And the way we can do that in that spot is we can go favorite foods bracket I is assigned pineapple. Okay, so it switches it. So like maybe we have an array that has 1,000 things in it. And so we want to search through until we find the word mango. And whenever we find it, we want to replace it with the word pineapple. And that's what this is going to do. So if we can imagine this array was super, super long, there's a million foods I like, but I really decide that I don't like mangoes anymore and I only like pineapples, then if it finds a mango in the array, then it's going to replace it with pineapple. So let's see how that looks here in the terminal. See, steak, pineapple, and curry were printed out. So what happened is we come down here and it says in the array at index 1, which is mango, that we're going to now change that and make it pineapple. So the array is no longer mango at that point in time. It's now pineapple. So I pass this if statement. And once it matches it, it's going to replace mango with pineapple in the actual array. So then we come down here and we reference the array. So we reference it at index 1, and it looks up in here and it says, oh, it's pineapple, so it prints out pineapple. So yeah, so you're going to be playing around with some for loops. You're going to be playing around with if statements, and yeah, it's originally we weren't going to do arrays on this day, but then just as I was building out the homework, it just a lot of what you're doing with for loops is you're operating on arrays, and so that's really like a foundational skill to to practice. So yeah, there's that. Two last little things with the array that I just want to go over is generally when you're adding something to an array during runtime, so like dynamically. So let's say that we have a okay, so I want to add a new food to the array, and I'm not going to write it in line in the actual code like this, but I'm just going to add it in. So like let's say the user typed it in a form and they pushed a button and submitted it. So we don't know what the string is going to be beforehand, but we just need to push it in. And so what we'll do is we'll say, we'll go array.push. And so this again is a reference to the array. I'm going to go .push, and then push will take this string and it adds it onto the end. So now let's console.log favorite foods, so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to comment this line out so it doesn't run. And again, these are code comments. Everything that's beyond it doesn't run during execution. So this for loop is just gonna change the mango to pineapple. That's all it's gonna do. And then we're gonna push ice cream onto the end, and then we're gonna print out the array. So let's go and look and see what it looks like now. Steak, pineapple, curry, ice cream. Okay. So all right, so we added it. So then now let's say that we want to go on a diet and we don't want to eat ice cream anymore. So favorite foods.pop. And this will get the last item off of the array. Whatever it is, it will take it and it pops it off the end. Okay, I gotta log it out. All right. All right, so let's go back to terminal. See steak, pineapple, curry, ice cream, and then down below steak, pineapple, curry. So pop the one off of the end. There's methods for doing stuff off the front of the array. There's stuff for like putting things into the middle of the array and doing some different things like that, some more advanced methods. We dive into a lot more of that when we get into our advanced course. We'll probably talk a little bit about some of those other methods tomorrow, but anyway, these are just some of the most commonly used array methods: push and pop and length Length is a property. Push and pop are both methods because they're like functions. You see the parentheses, you pass something into them, and then they add things to the array. Yeah, so those are the basics of arrays. Arrays store multiple values. Generally within an array, everything in there has the same type, like they'll all be strings, or they'll all be numbers or objects. Eventually, when we learn about objects tomorrow, everything is essentially arrays of objects. You're working with that all the time, just arrays of objects, and then you're looping over those arrays. And that's very, very common. You're doing that all the time. So naming convention, we use camel case. So as you see here, lowercase first word, and then I capitalize, the second word. And then as you see, I pluralize it. So an array, generally, you give it a plural name. So foods, plural. So those are some of the naming conventions with these variables. All right, so that was quite a bit of information, but again, with this format, the great thing is you can come back and review the video, and then we have a bunch of automated tests and some homework that I'll be publishing and making public in just a moment, and then we'll be sending the link out to you. Also, just a quick note is when you finish the assignment, go and commit your changes, push it back up to GitHub, and then in the very end, when we do an assessment, what we'll do is we'll make a channel, and anyone who wants to who wants our certificate, what we'll do is we can go and look at their GitHub profile, look at the 4 different homeworks that they've forked and cloned and committed and pushed the changes up. So you can go and see your code on there, look at it, and just make sure that you have everything working. Again, in our upcoming course on April 10th, we're going over full stack JavaScript. So we go really, really deep with JavaScript, and we use it to build front-end web applications. We use it to build servers and work with databases. We build mobile apps, so iOS and Android apps, and then we go into even a little bit of machine learning and artificial intelligence with neural networks. And cover a lot of cool stuff, career support. In our actual lectures, instead of me just broadcasting out to people, or one of our teachers broadcasting out to a huge audience, the people will actually be in the class. We keep the class sizes small, so you'll be part of the video. So you'll be asking questions, and there will be lots of student interaction, be running polls and different things like that. And so it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be great. Our part-time course, especially coming up, is definitely, at least to my knowledge, one of the most the most advanced part-time coding bootcamp that we know of. And so we start our students at a high level. There's a lot of pre-course work they have to do, but then we push hard and explain things clearly and do our best to help you learn all the different information, all the different things that we teach, and help you master this info. So we'd love to have you guys come and apply and continue to learn with us. We'd also love it if you guys would go and like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or we'd love it if you guys could share about this class on Facebook and social media and stuff like that, and so more people can come in and learn and and make the community even better, and create a better environment for for all of us to study in. All right, so that's it for me, and thanks so much. Glad you could attend. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Well, actually, just a moment in the Slack channel. If I can figure out how to close it. There we go.